Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Welcome to today's reading from Brilliant as the Sun, Retelling of Srimad Bhagavatam Canto 3, Part 2. Two avatars, and we are going to be reading from chapter 13 today. We'll start first with the introduction of this new volume. In this fourth volume of Brilliant as the Sun, comprising chapters 13 to 33 of Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, we hear the accounts of two appearances of Lord Vishnu, the boar incarnation Lord Varaha, and the teacher of Sankhya Lord Kapil. As in previous volumes of the series, we have strived to stay true to the text of the Srimad Bhagavatam as presented by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, our revered guide. We have also tried to bring out the dramatic flow of the verses by including insights from Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's commentary, Sararth Darshani, and by giving our own contextual interpretations of the dialogue. For example, in the conversation between Kapila and his mother Devahuti, based upon indications in the text and commentaries, we interpret her questions to be impelled by the grief of missing her husband Kardam. We also use various devices to clarify that philosophy to the best of our ability to avoid turning the work into a textbook. These include inserting the internal dialogue of main characters and introducing conversations with people who are not described in Srimad Bhagavatam. This latter device we use to clarify points of philosophy between Kapila and Devahuti. Since we are not liberated souls, we do not pretend that such additions are based on spiritual revelation. Rather, we use them to help make the book both interesting and informative, but without altering the essential narrative. Our primary aim in writing this series is to stimulate interest in Srimad Bhagavatam, specifically Srila Prabhupada's illuminating translation and commentary. We are aware that others may have differing interpretations and understandings of the text. Indeed, Srila Prabhupada said in this regard, Srimad Bhagavatam is as great as Krishna, the Supreme Lord, and shelter of everything. In each and every verse of Srimad Bhagavatam and in each and every syllable, there are various meanings. This is from Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Leela, chapter 24, verse 318. We acknowledge our presentation of this great work may contain mistakes, and we invite corrections. If we can simply inspire our readers to delve deeply into Srila Prabhupada's work, we will consider our efforts successful. For it's by his association that we shall all become spiritually purified. Please be aware that throughout the book we use the pronoun he to indicate both genders. As in previous volumes, we have appendices and notes at the back of the book to help the readers who wish to make serious study of the original text. We offer our respects to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna, and to all the great sages and spiritual teachers who have been instrumental in passing this monumental literature down to us. We especially offer our deepest respects to Srila Prabhupada, whose books and lectures have inspired us to practice spiritual life. We pray that by the grace of these divine personalities, this book may somehow touch your heart and assist you in your spiritual journey. Om Tat Sat. Now the prologue of the book. 88,000 sages arose in unison to greet Sutta. Shaunak watched his friend make his way through the crowd to the front where he awaited him. For many years Shaunak had led the sages in their sacrifices to the gods, but he had long doubted the efficacy of their rituals. Sutta's return had been most timely. He had left Naimisharanya long ago in search of an effective remedy to the many ills of the looming Kali age, a time of quarrel and hypocrisy when all the earth's creatures were destined to suffer. On his return, Sutta assured them he had found a solution. He had heard the renowned Shukadev Goswami instruct transcendental knowledge to the world's emperor, King Parikshit. Sutta assured the sages that anyone who attentively heard this recitation would become free of suffering and experience sublime happiness. This afternoon would be their fourth session hearing from him. Yesterday morning, Sutta had told them the background to Shukadev's conversation with King Parikshit. In the late afternoon, he had given an overview of the mysteries of creation. This morning, he had started the tale of the great Saint Vidur's meeting with Maitreya. The truths he had explained in even this short time had greatly enlivened the varied sages, and they were keen to hear that Sutta would share with them what Sutta would share with them next. Sutta ascended the platform where Shaunaka waited. When all were seated, Shaunaka said, "This morning you ended by describing how Swambhuva Manu and his wife Shatarupa came from the two halves of Brahma's body. You told us how they conceived two sons named Priyavrata and Uttanpad and three daughters named Akuti, Devahuti and Prasuti, who all played a key role in populating the universe. We are eager to know what Shukadev next said to Parikshit on this matter." Sutta offered respects to his spiritual master Shukadev and resumed his narration. Now we begin chapter 13, Lord Varaha's appearance. Swambhuva Manu and his wife Shatarupa appear from Brahma and are ordered to populate the universe. Discovering that the earth planet has fallen into the Garbhodak ocean, Brahma is perplexed. Lord Varaha appears from his body, rescues the earth, and slays the great demon Hiranyaksha. In the early morning chill, birds flew chirping from their nests in search of food. Deer ambled toward the river to drink. Monkeys chattered noisily as they clambered among the nearby trees, and elephants trumpeted in the distance. Raising his face to catch the first rays of the rising sun, Parikshit was reminded of the previous morning. The forest creatures had fled this way, and as he thundered out from Hastinapur on a hunting expedition, by mid-morning the sun was high in the sky. Overcome by thirst, the king sought relief in Shamik Rishi's hermitage. The sage had remained unresponsive to Parikshit's request for water. Not realizing Shamik was in a deep trance of meditation, Parikshit angrily left. As he did so, he saw a dead snake, and lifting it with the end of his bow, he dropped it around Shamik's neck, and he re-entered his capital Hastinapur. He was overcome with remorse. Soon a messenger arrived from Shamik bearing bad news. Shamik's young son Shringi, enraged by the insult against his father, had cursed Parikshit to die in 7 days from a snake bite. Parikshit immediately abdicated his throne and went to the bank of the Ganges to prepare for death. Many sages came to assist him, but they could not agree on what the king should do. Finally, in the late evening, Shukadev arrived. Everyone unanimously agreed to accept his direction, for they knew he was a fully enlightened soul. Parikshit asked Shukadev numerous questions, many of which had arisen from the misconceptions he detected in the teachings of other sages present. As Parikshit had vowed to neither eat, drink, or sleep, Shukadev agreed to instruct him continuously throughout the day and night. During his narration, Shukadev had recounted a conversation between two great devotees of Krishna, Maitreya and Vidur. Enlivened by this discourse, Parikshit was eager to hear more. In the first light of morning, Parikshit could see that the large audience of ascetics and mystics were equally impressed by Shukadev's untiring narration. They listened spellbound as the sage continued to speak. Shukadev said, after hearing about the primary and secondary creations from sage Maitreya, Vidur inquired further about the Lord. Not only did he enjoy listening such transcendental topics, but he knew that knew they bestowed all blessings on the attentive hearer. Parikshit leaned forward, intent on catching Shukadev's every word. Vidur stretched out his back. For some hours he had sat entranced by Maitreya's narration. He glanced over at the nearby lake. Multicolored fish darted among the water lilies, and frogs leapt from one lily pad to another. The mid-afternoon sun rays sparkled on the rippling water. Now, this was first verse of 13th chapter, and now we'll read from the second verse of the 13th chapter. Keen to learn how the creation had expanded, Vidur asked, "Great sage, what did Brahma's dear son Swambhuva Manu do after marrying his devoted wife?" Verse 3. Maitreya hesitated. It seemed unbefitting for an ascetic to speak about the loving affairs between a husband and wife. Detecting his reservation, Vidur said, "Most virtuous Maitreya, since Manu, the first king, was a great Krishna devotee, it is worth hearing of his sublime character and activities. Please describe them, for I am eager to hear." Maitreya nodded. Vidur was right. To hear about the character and activities of Krishna's pure devotees was as beneficial as hearing about the Lord himself. Still, would it not be better to hear about the relationship between a husband and wife from a married man? As a lifelong celibate, Maitreya was reluctant to speak about such dealings. Verse 4. Seeing him still uncertain, Vidur said, "Dear Maitreya, please do not hesitate. The main purpose of hearing from a pure devotee is to hear about the activities of other such devotees. Only a saint of your caliber can understand the heart of great soul like Swambhuva Manu, as you are, always absorbed in thoughts of Krishna, who awards liberation. You can never be contaminated by illusion." Verse 5. Maitreya was touched by Vidur's faith in Krishna. No wonder he was so dear to Lord. He remembered how Krishna, the master of untold energies, took pleasure in dining at Vidur's humble home. While resting, the Lord placed his lotus feet on Vidur's lap. Maitreya experienced ecstatic horripilation as he meditated on Vidur's great fortune. Enlivened by Vidur's devotion, he agreed to relate Swambhuva Manu's history. Verse 6. As I have previously said, Swambhuva Manu and his wife Shatrupa appeared from Brahma's body. Listen to what transpired next. Brahma admired the handsome young couple who had emerged from his body. They looked resplendent in their royal dress and regalia. Informed by the Lord in his heart, Brahma knew them to be Swambhuva Manu and his consort Shatrupa, and he earnestly hoped that they would become the progenitors of humanity. Noting their noble features which bespoke their great virtue, a shimmer of fear entered Brahma's heart. What if they, like their elder siblings, the 4 Kumar brothers, decided to live a life of renunciation? Verses 7 and 8. Sensing Brahma's anxiety, the couple knelt before him, their heads lowered. Swambhuva Manu said, "Lord, I know you to be the father of all living beings, and thus the source of their subsistence. Please order us how we may serve you. O revered one, please instruct us to our duties. I am sure that by executing them, we shall attain fame in this life and salvation in the next." Verses 9 to 12, Brahma replied, "My dear son, Lord of the world, I am pleased with you, and I desire all blessings for both you and your wife, since you have without reservation surrendered yourself to executing my instructions. O hero, your behavior exemplifies the proper attitude of a son toward his father. Such adoration for the superior is imperative for those who desire success in life. Indeed, any man who is neither envious nor insane will follow his father's order with great delight and execute it to his full capacity." Brahma raised Swambhuva and Shatrupa, offering them a seat next to his. "Since you are my obedient son, I ask you to beget children as qualified as you in the womb of your wife, following the principles of devotional service, rule this world as a sacrifice for the Supreme Lord's pleasure. O King, if you protect the living beings in the material world, that will be the best service. Certainly the master of the senses will be pleased with you. Verse 13, the couple looked quizzically at one another and then at Brahma. Was he not supreme? Brahma said, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is Lord Krishna. He is celebrated as Janardhan, or the maintainer of all living beings. It is he we must please by our sacrifice. Swambhuva and Shatarupa wondered what sacrifice they needed to perform. Brahma said, my dear children, Krishna is pleased when we hear about him from his pure devotees and repeat his glories. Thus one can always remember him and execute all activities for his pleasure. If we fail to please Krishna, our endeavors will not produce auspicious results. Please remember that Krishna is the ultimate self, and those who do not satisfy him neglect their own interests. Verse 14, Manu folded his palms and replied, all-powerful Lord, killer of sins, I shall abide by your order. Please let me know where we should reside along with our descendants. Brahma instructed them to go to the earth planet which lay between Bhuvarlok and Atala. On hearing this order, husband and wife departed. By virtue of their mystic power, they journeyed down past the higher planetary systems where the celestial sages dwell, past Swarglok where the gods reside, and past Bhuvarlok where Shiva's associates dwell. As they approached the earth planet, a mighty wave rose from the Garbhodak ocean and swept it down to its depths. Alarmed, Manu called out to Brahma for help. Soon the four had explained what had happened. Unable to remedy this situation, I have called you, O Master of the Gods. Kindly lift the earth, which is now merged in the great water, since you have designated it as the dwelling place for my descendants. This feat can only be accomplished by you with the supreme energies. This feat can only be accomplished by you with the Supreme Lord's mercy. Verses 16 and 17. Brahma hovered over the tumultuous Garbhodak ocean for a long time, wondering how to rescue the earth planet he had previously tried unsuccessfully. Okay, yes, where were we? Yeah, kindly lift. Unable to remedy this situation, I have called you, O Master of the Gods. Kindly lift the earth, which is now merged in the great water, since you have designated it as the dwelling place for my descendants. This feat can only be accomplished by you with the Supreme Lord's mercy. Brahma hovered over the tumultuous Garbhodak ocean for a long time, wondering how to rescue the earth planet he had previously tried unsuccessfully to dive to the bottom of the ocean. He wrung his hands. How had this calamity befallen the earth? What should he do? Although he was meant to be the creator, he was bewildered. It was best to let the Almighty Lord direct him. Verses 18 and 19 now. The second he thought this, a small boar, no bigger than the tip of a thumb, came out of his nostril. Brahma watched in amazement as the creature flew high above him and grew to the size of a great elephant. Verses 20 to 24. Struck with the wonder at observing the wonderful boar in the sky, Brahma said, Is this boar a divine being? It is astounding that he came from my nose. First, he was no bigger than the tip of my thumb, and within a moment, he has assumed the size of a hill. I'm completely mystified who this could be. As Brahma and his son stood gasping in astonishment, the boar's body further expanded, covering the entire sky up to the Satyaloka. Satyaloka is the abode of Lord Brahma. Like a massive mountain, his tumultuous roars filled their hearts with confidence. Brahma realized the boar must be the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Vishnu. As if in confirmation, the boar roared again, enlivening Brahma and the sages. Verse 25, even the great sages in the high planets of Janaloka, Tapoloka and Satyaloka heard the divine roaring. They immediately knew it was the all-merciful Lord Varaha, and in great jubilation they glorified him with Vedic hymns. Varaha understood, verses 26 to 28. Now Varaha understood that the prayers were meant for him. He roared again to reassure his devotees. He flew high into the sky. He flew high into the sky and, slashing his tail, his bristles quivering, his eyes were luminous. And he scattered the clouds with his hooves and glittering white tusks. Hearing the commotion, the principal gods arrived on the scene. They knew he was Krishna, assuming a transcendental boar form to enjoy the pastimes. Okay. With folded palms, they offered prayers while Varaha sniffed in search of the earth and cleft the air with his terrible tusks. Although he was terrifying to behold, his devotees were not afraid because he constantly glanced affectionately at them, filling them with the transcendental pleasure. He then plunged into the Garbhodak ocean like a playful elephant. Verse 29, when the Garangatuan Varaha dove into the water, two high waves rose up like arms. It seemed to be Brahma, as if the crashing waters were beseeching Varaha, saying, Lord of all sacrifices, please do not cut me in two. Kindly protect me. Verses 30 to 32. Penetrating the water with his arrow-like hooves, Varaha descended to the bed of the fathomless Garbhodak ocean, where the planets rest during the devastation at the end of Brahma's day. He soon found the earth and lifted it on the end of his tusks. Varaha effortlessly carried the earth planet to the ocean's surface. Bursting out of the sea, he looked like a dark mountain with the earth on its peak. Meanwhile, lurking in the water's depths was the frightful demon Hiranyaksha, his dark features screwed up in a scowl. This was his domain. How dare this impudent pig come here and try to take away the earth? The demon sprung from the waters and attacked the Lord. Intent on preventing the rescue, Varaha blazed up in anger. To the watching gods, he resembled Vishnu's Sudarshan wheel. The two giants engaged in terrific combat. Varaha slew Hiranyaksha as a lion kills an elephant. The Lord's cheeks and tongues were smeared with demon's blood, making him appear like an elephant whose trunk had become reddened from the digging in the reddish earth. Verse 33, when Hiranyaksha was slain, Varaha raised the earth on the points of his curved white tusks. Playing like an elephant in the water, he stood up on his hind legs, his blackish-blue complexion resembling a tamal tree. The sages headed by Brahma offered him respectful prayers. Verses 34 and 35. The sages said, O unconquerable one, enjoyer of all sacrifices, all glories and all victory unto you, innumerable universes generate from your pores. Your transcendental body is the Vedas personified. To save the earth, you have assumed this form. Lord, you are worshipped by sacrifice, by faithless miscreants. But faithless miscreants cannot see you, although they deride you. Some pride themselves on being strict followers of the Vedas. They should understand that all Vedic hymns, including the Gayatri, arise from your skin. The kusha grass used in sacrifice comes from your bodily hairs. The clarified butter used as oblations in sacrifice comes from your eyes, and your 4 legs give rise to the 4 types of ritual sacrifice. Verses 36 to 39. The vessels and ladles used in the sacrificial rites are generated from your body, as are the 7 types of routine Vedic sacrifices. The faithless fail to understand that you are captivated not by rituals but by the performer's devotion. You are the Supreme Person, and all Vedic prayers and sacrifices are meant to worship you. We therefore venerate you, who can be seen only by one free of material desires. We offer repeated obeisance to you, the Supreme Spiritual Master, for you teach the path of devotion by which one attains your association. Verses 40 and 41 now. Lord, the earth with all its mountains looks most beautiful, balanced on your tusks. It appears like a lotus with its leaves held in the trunk of an infuriated elephant. Just as you enhance the earth's beauty, it too augments yours. As clouds decorate the peaks of a great mountain, Lord Bor said in the thunderous voice, I am pleased by your praise. What do you desire? Verse 42. In one voice the sages and Brahma called out, Please place the earth, who is your consort, in a secure place. She is the mother of all her inhabitants, and you are their father and protector. You have thus invested Mother Earth with the gravitational energy which makes her habitable. Verse 43. As they spoke, the sky was filling with the host of lesser celestials, hurrying to see what was happening. Brahma invited Manu to speak. Manu said, O Lord, only you could deliver the earth from the depths of the Garbhodak ocean. This feat is not astonishing for you, who have created the entire universe by your energy. Varaha shook his mighty body, sending a shower of water over the sages. Some minor celestials stepped back, fearing of becoming contaminated by water from a hog. Verse 44. Observing this, Brahma indicated the sages who gratefully accepted the holy water from the Lord's transcendental body. He said, O Supreme Lord, we inhabit the most pious planets Janalok, Tapalok, and Satyalok. Still, even we are purified by the drops of water sprinkled from your hairs. The celestials looked down in shame. Brahma again turned to Manu, inviting him to continue. Verse 45. Manu glanced with compassion toward the embarrassed gods. He said to Varaha, My lord, how much can any living entity understand your unlimited pastimes? Anyone who thinks he can perfectly comprehend your deeds is most foolish. We fail to understand you because we are deluded by your material energy. Even the residents of the spiritual world do not fully appreciate your power. Their knowledge is covered by your spiritual energy, so they can immerse themselves in your sweetness. No one can fully know you, nor should anyone try to understand you by mental speculation. Rather, we pray that you kindly bless us, that we can worship you with devotion. Verse 46. Pleased with his devotees' prayers, Varaha imbued the earth with buoyancy by the touch of his hooves. Then he placed her on the water. Verse 47. Maitreya concluded his narration. After rescuing the earth, the Lord departed for his own abode. Vidur sat stunned, tears ran down his face. Verses 48 to 49. Maitreya said, The Lord in everyone's heart is pleased if one hears and describes this auspicious narration of Lord Bor with devotion. When he is satisfied, no blessing is unobtainable. Seated within the heart, Krishna knows the worshipper's motive. The pseudo-devotee who is anxious to achieve material gains cannot attain success, but Krishna gives all help to one who exclusively desires his association. Although difficult to achieve, a sincere devotee will enter his supreme abode by his grace. Verse 50, Vidur looked pensive. How could one cultivate such an exclusive devotional attitude? Divining his mind, Maitreya explained that devotional service begins by hearing about Krishna's transcendental activities. By hearing and repeating these pastimes, one's desires will become purified. He said, just having a human body does not make one truly human. Many so-called humans have the psychology of a two-legged animal. Such animalistic people are not interested in the spiritual world. They refuse to hear Krishna's pastimes. Dear Vidur, try to understand the potency of hearing about Krishna by attentively hearing his pastimes and teachings. One's attachment to matter is destroyed along with one's suffering. So the last line is so beautiful. By attentively hearing the pastimes of Krishna and his teachings, one's attachment to matter is destroyed along with one's suffering. So next time we'll begin chapter 14. Thank you for joining and wish you all a very happy Kamada Ekadashi. Have a nice day. Think, chant, remember the pastimes of Lord and do your duties and prayers to Krishna, and God looks after each one of us. Hari Om Tat Sat. Hare Krishna.